All right, we are here for the first Friday version of Ask Asha. And I think some people will be, I'm looking at all this stuff. Oh my goodness. Things you're not supposed to do when you're live on video, right? Anyway, I hope that you all are having a great, wonderful Friday. And thank you for tuning in, whether you are watching this live or you are watching it on the replay. As you can see, maybe you don't know, but I'm in my childhood bedroom. I'm streaming to you from Portland, Oregon, where I was born and raised, hence I was big into blue back when I was in high school. So, all of these blue things from that, where is it? Blue inflatable thing to all these pictures and stuff back here. Clearly a blue kind of person. It was definitely for sure my favorite. But today we are going to be talking about building your business on a strong foundation. So where do we start? I have seen a lot of businesses that had great ideas, got some traction, but they weren't built on a strong foundation. So as soon as there was some kind of challenge, whether it was bringing in revenue or having a contract dispute or having an employment dispute with a worker or maybe a tax liability bill that came up, right? People were unable to sustain what they were doing because their business wasn't built on this really strong foundation. And my mission right now is to help you build a business and to leave a legacy. And so part of the business is part of it's that outward facing, getting clients, having a great product, having a great service, and putting yourself out there. But the other part of it that people don't see is how strong of a legal foundation you have, how strong are your contracts, and how strong are your systems and your processes, right? So thanks for joining. You can feel free to come off video if you want for the conversation, or you can stay right where you are, up to you. But feel comfortable, as they say in Brazil, fica à vontade. So feel comfortable however you want to show up. But thank you for joining. So you need to build a really strong foundation, right? And of course, from the legal perspective for me, that is having an LLC or a corporation to protect you. That is also having really strong contracts to protect you. That is understanding what are the employment laws and obligations and responsibilities that you have. And also making sure that you are set up to go with taxes. And now it doesn't really matter how big or small you are, because your foundation is going to hold you in place and support you when you grow, right? Think about like roots in going into the earth, and the tree initially is pretty small, but the roots are growing and building a strong foundation. Then as the tree gets bigger, then the roots still hold that tree in place. So think about your business foundation as that kind of a thing, right? So on the legal side of it, really important to have an LLC or a corporation. What does that do for you personally? I say it all the time, but again, the LLC or the corporation creates some separation between you and your business. So if there's a problem, let's say you build a product and I don't know, the earring somehow explodes and cuts somebody, causes some harm. If somebody decides to sue, they're suing the business, they're not suing you, right? Now, I'm going to knock out this lack mentality that some of us have. I get it as new business owners. People say, well, I don't have anything yet. I don't have any money yet. I don't own a house. So really, if they try and sue me, they're not going to get anything. That's not always going to be your case, right? And you want to set yourself up as you are the business that you want to be in the future, not just for what you are now, right? So if you don't have any assets now, have a sole proprietorship and get sued, well, that's on you. That becomes a personal debt that you have to pay. So when you get ready to grow your business, maybe you need to secure a loan personally, but now you've got this debt behind you that you can't use. You don't want your credit score to be jacked up, and you just don't want your personal stuff to be involved with your business stuff. So that's one of the things that having a legal entity can do. It can protect you. That's always kind of the doomsday thing, but it happens. You know, people say, I used to do medical malpractice when I first started out, and they would say to the doctors, especially those first timers, if you haven't been sued, you haven't been practicing long enough, right? Because you're doing business. you can't control what other people do. So as much as all you can do is protect yourself as best that you can, but you can't control or stop someone else from trying to come after you. So that's why it's important to have that foundation. And is the longer you're in business, the more experiences you're going to have, and ultimately the more exposure and the more risk you have. So you want to protect yourself in that way. What else can an LLC do, or a corporation for legal foundation? You can run more expenses through your LLC or through your corporation than you can as a sole proprietor. As a sole proprietor, you have to work really hard to prove that everything you're doing is for the business. I was talking to a wealth advisor a couple months ago, and she was saying she learned so much from one of her clients who had this corporation that was worth, I don't know, somewhere in the millions or billions of, probably millions of dollars. And he had like $2 or $3 million penthouse, I guess you'd say apartment, but something that he owned, but it was a business expense. Why? Because it was corporate housing, right? And now that might sound uncomfortable, it might sound like you're cheating, but I know a really good nonprofit organization that has corporate housing for their directors, because they pull directors in from all over the world to their location in Chicago. And so the director of the nonprofit, as long as they're in that role, I think that's a maximum of 4 or 5 years, they have guaranteed housing. That's how they are able to pull directors in, because then they don't have to worry about buying property in Chicago and doing all that. It's walking distance from the office, corporate housing. You could do the same thing. Maybe you want, me, right? I love to travel. I love to be by the beach. I believe in rest and recuperation. I believe in staff retreats, right? I believe in business retreats and rejuvenation. So maybe what I want to do one day is to buy a property for my business retreats in the name of the business. I'm not saying that you have to or that you can't, but it gives you, having that separate legal entity gives you a little bit more room to play around with, like buying property in different ways, which also leads to building wealth in different ways. You can pay yourself through your LLC by opening up a 401k, a SEP IRA. You can do the same thing with a corporation. So the same mentality that we have that when we go to apply for a job, one of the things we look at is not just the salary, but we look at what is the retirement package, what are the benefits. All of those things you can be providing for yourself and for your workers through your own business. You can do some of that through a sole proprietorship, but you don't have the same protection and you don't have the same ability to grow and to expand as you do when you are doing it through an LLC or a corporation. So that, to me, in my opinion, is huge. That is really, really important. And again, my mission is to help you build a business and to leave a legacy behind you by creating wealth in your business. So that's the part about LLCs and corporations. Let's see, the other thing I was going to talk about, contracts, right? Contracts are extremely important. They're really, really important. I just edited and revised some contracts for another nonprofit organization. And actually, this was more on the realm of employment law, but they didn't understand the difference between an employment agreement and an independent contractor contract. So I'll get to the difference between those two in a moment. But the reason why it's really important to have your contracts written down, reviewed by an attorney, and get yourself like a template that you can use, that you can update with each party, that especially if you're doing the same, let's say you're doing coaching or you are supplying goods to a particular type of business, maybe a restaurant or a store, you want to make sure that you have a contract that you can use repeatedly. So you hire an attorney, pay an attorney once to look it over, and use it for a year or two, have the attorney look over it again, see what has updated in terms of the law, see if your practice has updated, and then you can still use that document over and over again. Why is it important? Contracts will protect you also, right? The three most important things to have in a contract are the party, the price, and performance. Party, price, and performance. So who are the parties? What are the names of the parties? What's the legal entity name? So if something goes wrong, who are you going after in court, and who is the other party going after? So I have a business, I have a corporation, a law corporation. I don't sign contracts in my name, Asha Wilkerson, if it's related to my business. I sign them in the name of the Wilkerson Law Office so that the contract is with that entity. If there's an issue, I say I'm going to show up for a speaking gig and I'm not able to make it and they want me to pay for the costs, they're going to ask my business to pay for the costs and not me personally. Why? Because again, if I'm not able to pay for it personally, I can use my business. If there has to be something like collections against the business, it goes against the business and doesn't come against me, right? So to protect myself. Same thing on the other end, you want to know who is going to pay you if they breach the contract. So having the legal name of the parties is really important. The price and manner of payment is extremely important. Most people get the price part. That's not usually a problem. I want you to pay me XYZ money, but how are you going to pay me? And if it's late, is there a penalty? That needs to be clearly stated because if you have to go to a third party to help you enforce that contract, you want the third party to be as clear as possible about what it is that you expected from the other side, right? How are they supposed to pay you? What is the penalty for paying you late? The more you have written down, the better, the easier it'll be to figure that out later on. The third thing is the performance. What is each party expected to do? Usually one party is expected to pay, right? And the other party is expected to provide the goods or the service. I had a client who was, he came to me after he had hired a developer. He had created this like point of sale system for restaurant owners to help track data and do like an email list and all this stuff, right? It sounded really cool. He hired a developer to help him build this thing out, right? Two things that he didn't realize. He didn't realize that the developer had said in his contract that he was going to retain rights to the technology that he brought to the system, right? So let's say he's got this foundation, the developer's got this foundation, and the developer is building on top of that foundation. My client didn't have rights to that bottom foundation, so when he cut ties with the developer, the bottom foundation of what he had asked was removed, right? Because that was the developer's right, and he put that in the contract, and my client didn't catch it when he went on and hired the developer to do it, right? So now when my client wanted to move on and use a different developer, he didn't have the rights to take that base technology with him and to build on top of that. So that's important to know exactly what the performance is. The other part of it, similar situation, was that my client wanted to go back. He wanted to get edits, continuous edits, right? He was like, this is not right. This is not right. But according to the contract, it said, we're going to build a point of sale system. That's it, right? So technically he had a point of sale system, but my client wasn't satisfied with what it looked like. So if you were the one who's doing the work, it's important to put in there, what are the metrics? What are the measurable, tangible things that you can produce as an outcome? I'm going to build a web page for you and you will get 2 revisions and that's it. Right? It's not, I'm going to build a web page for you to your liking. It's not, I'm going to build a web page that ranks top 100 unless you can say that, right? But you want to make sure that you are not putting yourself on the hook for more than you can deliver. And you also want to make sure that if you're on the receiving end, that you are getting everything that you think that you are getting. So that's the performance. So if you have to go to a third party and they say, well, what were you supposed to do? You want all of that to be written down into the contract. So the third party has to just look and say, okay, well, what did you do? What did you not do? According to your agreement, this is it. So contracts are really, really important for building a strong foundation for your business. The last thing is employment law. Workers. A lot of us hire either independent contractors or employees to help us in our business, and that's perfectly fine. But what I realize is that a lot of us don't really know how to do that. So I was on a call today with a client of mine that has a health and wellness studio, and she opened up and didn't have the class attendance that she wanted right away. And so she had to cut ties with the other instructors that were teaching some of these online classes, right? And she paid everybody through, what is it, PayPal and like Venmo or something like that, right? Those are not payroll processors. And then she said, oh, well, everybody in the fitness industry gets paid as an independent contractor anyway. That's not actually true. There are some real criteria, especially in California, about who can be an independent contractor and who can be an employee. And because she only had 2 payroll periods, it's not that big of a deal to go back and fix. But I said, before we move forward into 2021, let's sit down and meet and make sure you understand the processes that you need to go through, why it's important to set up with a payroll company, what you need to know about registering with the Employment Development Department in California to pay into the unemployment pot, just in case you have to terminate somebody, or you can't give somebody the hours. Those are things that you don't necessarily think about when you're just starting out, but they're really important to know, because if you don't have that foundation set up, what are you going to do when you hire 10 employees now? If you have 10 employees and you're paying them all through Venmo, you're not paying unemployment insurance, you're not paying Social Security. And at some point, that is going to catch up with you. And it's going to be a huge bill, not just because of what you didn't pay and you should have paid, but also because of the penalties that get associated with it. So just make sure that you are setting yourself up in the correct way so that you can pay people properly and not end up in a situation where you've got a lot of undoing to do, right? So these things are really important for your legal foundation, for your business foundation on the legal side. And then we talked a little bit about the tax side. Okay, so that's what I have for you all today. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome. You can either put them in the chat, or you can come off, maybe if you want to ask your question out loud, or if you want to come on video. Anything that you want is just fine with me. Let's see if you're, I don't think you're on mute anymore, but I can't hear you. Oh, you are mute. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. If you all have any questions, you can feel free to put them. If you're looking on Facebook, you can put them in the comment section and I will get back to you, or you can send me an email and we can pick up this conversation later. But I will see you all next week, next Friday at 1 p.m. for the next set of office hours. And we're talking about business financial planning for 2021. Now, I'm not a financial planner at all, but I've got a business and I know how to make a plan. So that's what we're going to be talking about together. So, all right, enjoy the rest of your afternoon and see you next week.